The space around Kepler Station burned with the light of 1,000 dying ships. Admiral Zix watched from his command bridge as another coalition fleet fell apart under the crushing fire of hegemony battleships. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he counted the losses. 37 ships destroyed in less than an hour. The war was going badly, just like it had been going badly for 7 long years. Commander Vesh stepped up beside the admiral. Her blue skin looked pale in the red emergency lighting. She held a data pad with the latest casualty reports, but Zix did not want to see them. He already knew they were terrible. "Sir, we lost the cruiser Starwind and the destroyer pack from the Third Fleet," Vesh said quietly. "The hegemony pushed us back from the mining colonies again." Zix nodded, but said nothing. What was there to say? This was the same story every week, every month, every year since the war began. The coalition would attack, the hegemony would push back, and both sides would lose thousands of good people. Nothing ever changed except the body count. The war had started over something small. The hegemony wanted mining rights in the Outer Rim territories. The coalition said no. What should have been a simple disagreement turned into raids, then battles, then full war across half the galaxy. Now nobody even remembered who threw the first punch. Zix looked at the star chart on his wall. Red dots marked hegemony territory. Blue dots showed coalition space. 7 years ago, there had been a clear line between them. Now the colors mixed together like spilled paint. Battle lines moved back and forth, but neither side could win a real victory. "How many ships do we have left?" Zix asked. "In the entire coalition fleet? Maybe 800 combat-ready vessels, sir. The hegemony has about the same." 800 ships. Zix remembered when they started this war with over 3,000. The hegemony had lost just as many. Entire species had nearly gone extinct fighting this war. The proud Vorthans had sent their last ship into battle 3 months ago. The Centaurian home fleet was down to 12 vessels protecting their home world. On the other side, the hegemony was just as tired. Their supreme commander had not launched a major offensive in 6 months. Both sides sat in their corners of space, too weak to attack, too stubborn to surrender. The door to the bridge opened with a soft hiss. General Keth walked in, his tall frame bent with exhaustion. The Centaurian military leader looked older than his 40 years. Gray streaks ran through his dark hair and deep lines marked his face. "Another council meeting tomorrow," Keth said. "They want to discuss surrender terms." The words hit Zix like a physical blow. Surrender. After 7 years of fighting, after all the lives lost, they were talking about giving up. But what choice did they have? The coalition was broken. Their people were tired of war. The economy was falling apart as every resource went to building more ships that would just get destroyed. "What kind of terms?" Zix asked. "Bad ones. The hegemony wants control of all the Outer Rim territories. They want us to limit our fleet sizes. They want tribute payments for the next 50 years. Keth sat down heavily in a chair. "We would survive, but we would never be free again." Zix turned back to the star chart. Somewhere out there, Hegemony Admiral Corks was probably having the same conversation with his officers. The enemy was just as tired, just as broken, but they were asking for surrender terms, which meant they thought they were winning. Maybe they were right. "Sir, we have an incoming message," said Lieutenant Plex from the communication station. "It is coming from the edge of Coalition space. A system called Sol?" Zix frowned. Sol's system was barely inside Coalition territory. It was a small, unimportant place with one inhabited planet. Earth, he thought the natives called it. The species there had only discovered faster than light travel a few years ago. They were so new to space that most Coalition members forgot they existed. "What does a backwater world want with us?" Keth asked. "Put it through," Zix ordered. The main screen flickered and showed a human face. The being looked young compared to most Coalition leaders with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform that Zix did not recognize. "Admiral Zix, General Keth, I am Captain Jake Morrison of Earth," the human said. His voice was steady and confident. "We have been watching your war for 3 years now. We know you are losing. We know the hegemony is losing too. We want to help. Zix and Keth exchanged glances. Help? From a species that barely had a space navy? Captain Morrison, Zix said carefully, we appreciate your concern, but this is a conflict between major galactic powers. Your world has only a few dozen ships. Morrison smiled, and there was something unsettling about that smile. Admiral, we do not plan to win this war with our ships. We plan to win it with our minds. Give us complete tactical command for 5 hours and we will end this war permanently. The bridge fell silent. Even the background hum of the ship's systems seemed to quiet. 5 hours? This human wanted to end a 7-year war in 5 hours. That is impossible, Keth said. We have tried everything. The best military minds in the galaxy have thrown everything they have at this problem. Respectfully, General, you have tried everything that makes sense to you, Morrison replied. But you are not human. You do not think like we do. You fight wars the way your species have always fought wars. Honor, tradition, predictable tactics. The hegemony does the same thing. That is why this war will never end unless someone changes the rules. Zix studied the human's face. There was no arrogance there, no boasting. Morrison spoke like he was discussing the weather, calm and matter-of-fact. Either this human was completely insane, or he knew something the coalition did not. What exactly are you proposing? Zix asked. Simple. Give us tactical command of all coalition forces for exactly 5 hours. We will coordinate every ship, every soldier, every weapon you have. In return, we will end this war and guarantee that it never starts again. And what do you want in return? Keth asked suspiciously. Territory, resources, political power? Morrison shook his head. We want nothing except to stop the killing. Earth has seen enough wars, General. We know what they cost. This galaxy is destroying itself over pride and stubbornness. Someone needs to stop it. Zix felt a chill run down his spine. There was something in the human's voice. A quiet certainty that was more frightening than any threat. This Captain Morrison was not making a desperate proposal. He was stating a fact, as if the outcome was already decided. You say you have been watching our war? Zix said. What have you learned? Everything, Morrison replied simply. We know your ship movements, your supply routes, your communication codes. We know the hegemony's weaknesses and your own. We know why this war cannot be won by either side using conventional tactics. And we know exactly how to end it. The implications of those words sank in slowly. If the humans had been watching for 3 years, if they really did know everything about both sides, then they might actually have found something that everyone else had missed. Impossible, Keth muttered. No one could gather that much intelligence without being detected. Morrison's smile returned. General, your people have been fighting each other for so long that you forgot to watch your borders. We have been in your space, in hegemony space, recording everything. Small ships, careful movements, patient observation. While you were fighting yesterday's war, we were preparing for tomorrow's peace. Zix felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Millions of lives hung in the balance. The coalition was on the edge of surrender. If there was even a small chance that these humans could end the war, did he have the right to refuse? Need to discuss this with the full council, he said finally. Of course, Morrison replied. But Admiral, do not take too long. Every day this war continues, more people die. We can end that. All we need is 5 hours and your trust. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Zix stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. Could it be possible? Could this unknown species really end a war that had consumed the galaxy? Sir, Commander Vesh said quietly, what if they are right? The Coalition Council chamber on Nexus Prime had never been so quiet. 47 species sat around the massive circular table, but nobody spoke. The holographic display in the center showed the latest battle reports. More red numbers, more losses, more defeat. Admiral Zix stood at his seat looking at faces he had known for years. These beings had led their people through the darkest time in galactic history. Now they looked tired, broken, ready to give up. The vote for surrender negotiations was scheduled for tomorrow. Before we discuss surrender, Zix said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. There is something else we must consider. He activated his personal communicator. The chamber's main display changed to show Captain Jake Morrison's face. Even through the hologram, the human's calm confidence was unsettling. Honored members of the Coalition Council, Morrison began. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Command. 3 days ago, we offered to end your war in 5 hours. Today, I want to explain how. Councillor Vrex of the Altarian Republic leaned forward. His purple skin was marked with scars from the Battle of Proxima. Human, with respect, your species has existed in space for only 3 years. We have been fighting this war for 7. What could you possibly know that we do not? Morrison nodded politely. Councillor Vrex, you lost your entire 4th Fleet at Proxima because you used Formation 7 against a hegemony defensive screen. The same formation your people have used for 200 years. The hegemony knew exactly what you would do because you always do the same thing. The chamber erupted in angry voices. How could this human know classified military tactics? Vrex's face turned darker purple with rage. Silence, called out Supreme Councillor Thane, the ancient leader of the Vorthon. Collective. His mechanical voice cut through the noise. Captain Morrison, explain how you know this information. We have been watching, Morrison said simply. For 3 years, Earth has sent observation ships to monitor this conflict. Small vessels, careful movements, advanced stealth technology. We recorded every battle, every strategy, every mistake. General? Keth's voice was cold. That is espionage, an act of war. No, General, it is intelligence gathering, and it is legal under coalition law for observer species. Morrison remained calm despite the anger around him. We never interfered. We never helped either side. We just watched and learned. Councillor Drax of the Hegemony Border Worlds slammed his armored fist on the table. What did you learn, human? That we are fools? That our tactics are predictable? I learned that you are fighting the wrong war, Morrison replied. Both sides are using strategies that worked 50 years ago. Both sides expect the other to fight with honor and follow military tradition. Both sides are wrong. The display changed to show a tactical map of the galaxy. Red and blue dots marked the positions of fleets and installations. Lines showed supply routes and communication networks. The hegemony expects you to attack their strong points with large fleets, Morrison continued. You expect them to defend those points with conventional tactics. Neither side has adapted to new realities. You are fighting yesterday's war while tomorrow's war requires completely different thinking. Dr. Lisa Chen's face appeared beside Morrison on the display. The woman looked younger than most coalition military leaders, but her eyes held the sharpness of someone who had solved impossible puzzles. I am Dr. Chen, Earth specialist in xenopsychology and military strategy, she said. We have studied both coalition and hegemony command structures for 3 years. We know how your leaders think, how they make decisions, how they respond to threats. Impossible, muttered Councillor Yith of the Crystalline Confederacy. No one could analyze so many different species. Dr. Chen, said Supreme Councillor Thane, what have you discovered? Chen's expression grew serious. Every species in this, war makes decisions based on their evolutionary history. Altarians fight in formations because they evolved as herd animals. Centaurians use defensive strategies because they developed on a world with many predators. Vorthons rely on technology because they replace their biology with machines. The chamber grew quiet as the truth of her words sank in. The hegemony species have their own patterns, Chen continued. Caraxians always attack weak points because they evolved as pack hunters. Zelthons prefer overwhelming force because they dominated their homeworld through size and strength. Every species fights the way their ancestors survived. And humans? Asked Admiral Zix. Morrison and Chen exchanged a look that made several counselors uncomfortable. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Morrison said. We did not have claws or fangs or armor. We survived by being smarter, more adaptable, more unpredictable than everything that wanted to kill us. We learned to use tools, to work together, to think in ways that confused our enemies. The display changed again, showing Earth's history. Images of human conflicts flashed by. Ancient battles, world wars, space conflicts around Mars and the outer planets. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years, Morrison explained. We have tried every strategy, every tactic, every form of combat. We learned that the side that adapts fastest usually wins. The side that thinks differently usually survives. You are saying we are all predictable, said General Keth. I am saying you are all intelligent species that developed successful survival strategies, Morrison replied. But success can become a trap. When the environment changes, old strategies can become weaknesses. Another human face appeared on the display. General Pete Rodriguez looked like a soldier who had seen too many battles. His gray hair and weathered face spoke of hard experience. I am General Rodriguez, architect of Earth's military expansion, he said. Captain Morrison is being polite. The truth is simpler. You are all fighting like civilized beings with rules and honor and predictable methods. The hegemony does the same thing. That is why this war will never end. And humans do not fight. With honor? Counselor Vrex's voice was insulting. Rodriguez smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Counselor, humans fight to win. Everything else is secondary. The chamber erupted in angry voices again. Several counselors stood up, shouting about barbarism and uncivilized behavior. Supreme Counselor Thane called for order repeatedly. Morrison waited for the noise to die down. Honored counselors, we are not barbarians, we are pragmatists. When the choice is between honor and survival, we choose survival. When the choice is between tradition and victory, we choose victory. What exactly are you proposing? Asked Admiral Zix. Complete tactical command of all coalition forces for 5 hours, Morrison said. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. We will coordinate attacks across 47 star systems simultaneously. We will use psychological warfare to break the hegemony's command structure. We will end this war permanently. The silence that followed was heavy with doubt and fear. And if you fail? Asked Supreme Counselor Thane. We will not fail, Morrison replied with absolute certainty. But if we do, you will be no worse off than you are now. You are already planning to surrender. What do you have to lose? Counselor. Drax leaned forward. What do you have to gain? Why help us? Morrison's expression grew serious. Because this war is destroying the galaxy. Because millions of beings are dying for nothing. Because Earth has seen what happens when wars drag on too long. We know the cost of endless conflict. And because, added Dr. Chen, we believe this galaxy can be better than it is. Humans are good at seeing potential, at imagining what could be instead of accepting what is. The chamber fell silent again. The coalition leaders looked at each other, weighing impossible choices. We need time to discuss this, said Admiral Zix. Of course, Morrison replied. But Admiral, every day this war continues, more people die unnecessarily. We can stop that. All we need is your trust and 5 hours of your time. The transmission ended, leaving the Coalition Council alone with the hardest decision in galactic history. The vote was closer than anyone expected. 24 species voted yes, 23 voted no. The deciding vote came from Supreme Counselor Thane of the Vorthan Collective. His mechanical voice echoed through the chamber as he cast the ballot. That would change galactic history. The Vorthan Collective votes to accept the human proposal. May the ancestors forgive us if we are wrong. Admiral Zix felt his hearts racing as the chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Half the counselors looked relieved. The other half looked terrified. They had just given complete military control to a species they barely knew, based on promises. That seemed impossible to keep. The decision is made, Zix announced. Captain Morrison, you have tactical command of all coalition forces for 5 hours, beginning at 800 Galactic Standard Time tomorrow. 3 hours later, Zix stood in the Coalition's main war room watching the strangest military briefing of his career. The room was packed with senior officers from dozens of species, all staring at the young human who was about to explain how he would end their war. Commander Alex Turner looked even younger than Captain Morrison. At 32, he was the youngest fleet commander in Earth's short space history. But when he began speaking, his calm confidence filled the room. "The war cannot be won using conventional tactics," Turner said, gesturing to the massive display that showed the entire galaxy. "Both sides have strong defenses, experienced commanders, and roughly equal forces. Any direct attack will fail because your enemies know exactly what you will do." General Keth crossed his arms. "So what do you suggest?" "We cannot attack their strong points, and their weak points are too well defended." Turner smiled. "We attack everything at once." The room erupted, in voices. "Impossible," they said. "Insane. Suicide. No military force could coordinate attacks across the entire galaxy simultaneously." "Silence," called Admiral Zix. "Commander Turner, explain." The display changed to show a detailed map of hegemony space. Red dots marked military installations, supply depots, communication centers, and fleet bases. There were hundreds of them, spread across 47 star systems. "The hegemony's strength comes from centralized command," Turner explained. "Their supreme commander controls everything from his base on Caraxis Prime. Orders flow down through regional commanders to local forces. It is efficient, but it has a weakness." Turner pointed to communication lines connecting the various installations. "If their command structure is damaged, their forces cannot coordinate effectively. They become confused, isolated, unable to respond to multiple threats." Lieutenant Colonel Amy Brooks stepped forward. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I specialize in asymmetric warfare," she said. "What Commander Turner is proposing is not one battle, but hundreds of small battles happening at the same time." "Impossible," said Admiral Korath of the Rigellian Navy. "We do not have enough ships to attack hundreds of targets." "We do not need to destroy the targets," Brooks replied. "We need to make the hegemony think we are destroying them. Fear and confusion can be more effective than firepower." The display changed again, showing small coalition strike groups positioned throughout space. Each group had only a few ships, but they were spread out across the entire galaxy. "Phase 1, Turner explained. "At exactly 0800 GST, every strike group will attack a different hegemony installation simultaneously, not to destroy them, but to cause damage, create confusion, and force them to call for help." Captain Steve Martinez appeared on the display from his ship in deep space. The infiltration specialist had been working with coalition intelligence for the past 3 days. "While the attacks distract their military forces, my teams will disable communication networks across their capital worlds. We have identified the key relay stations that connect their command structure." Admiral Zix studied the plan with growing amazement. It was audacious, complex, and completely unlike anything he had ever seen. "How do you coordinate so many attacks across such vast distances?" "Human technology," said Dr. Chen, joining the I. Briefing from Earth. "We developed quantum communication networks during our expansion to the outer planets. Instantaneous communication across any distance. We can control this entire operation from a single command center." "And what happens after the initial attacks?" asked General Keth. Turner's expression grew serious. "Phase 2 begins immediately. While the hegemony struggles to understand what is happening, our real objective starts. Captain Morrison will lead. A small force directly to Caraxis Prime." The room fell silent. Caraxis Prime was the most heavily defended world in hegemony space. The capital world was surrounded by defensive stations, minefields, and the largest fleet in the galaxy. "That is suicide," whispered Commander Vesh. "No," Morrison said, speaking for the first time since the briefing began. "It is the only way to end this war permanently. While their forces are scattered responding to attacks across the galaxy, we will go to the source of their power." "To do what?" Admiral Zix asked. Morrison's expression was unreadable. "To deliver an ultimatum they cannot refuse." The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Coalition forces reorganized into the small strike groups Turner had designed. Ship captains received new orders, new targets, new tactics they had never used before. Many of them complained, but they followed their orders. Human advisors spread throughout the coalition fleet, taking positions on bridges and in command centers. Each advisor carried a small device that connected them to Earth's quantum communication network. For the first time in galactic history, a single command structure would control forces across the entire galaxy. Admiral Zix found himself on the bridge of his flagship with a young human lieutenant named Bobby Kim. The lieutenant was barely 25, but he spoke with the same quiet confidence as all the humans Zix had met. "Admiral, in 4 hours we will change everything," Kim said, checking his communication device. "Your people have fought bravely for 7 years. Today we end their suffering." "And if your plan fails?" Kim looked at him with eyes that seemed much older than his face. "Sir, humans have been fighting impossible odds for our entire history. We survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and expansion into hostile space. We learned that the impossible is just another word for something nobody has tried yet." Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on hundreds of ships. Human advisors worked with alien commanders, explaining tactics that seemed insane but were backed by careful analysis of hegemony psychology and response patterns. On the Centaurian destroyer Swift Wind, Lieutenant Rachel Lee showed the crew how to create false sensor signatures that would make their single ship appear to be an entire fleet. On the Vorthan cruiser Logic Prime, Sergeant Mike Davis demonstrated jamming techniques that would blind enemy sensors at critical moments. The humans were not just observers anymore. They had become partners in the most ambitious military operation in galactic history. As 800 GST approached, tension filled the coalition fleet. Thousands of beings who had been fighting a losing war for 7 years prepared to gamble everything on a plan created by aliens they barely understood. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Freedom, watching the countdown timer. Around him, his crew prepared for a mission that would either end the war or destroy them all. "All strike groups report ready," Lieutenant Kim announced from his position at the communication station. "Infiltration teams in position," reported Captain Martinez. "Command network active," confirmed Dr. Chen from Earth. Morrison looked at the timer. 3 minutes until 0800 GST. 3 minutes until they would discover if human ingenuity could succeed where galactic military might have failed. "Open a channel to all coalition forces," Morrison ordered. Thousands of ships across the galaxy received his transmission. Alien crews listened as the human captain spoke with calm certainty. "Today, we end this war. Not through superior firepower, but through superior thinking. Not through traditional tactics, but through adaptation and innovation. The galaxy is watching. Let us show them what becomes possible when different species work together." The timer reached 0. "All units, execute Operation Endgame. The clock starts now." At exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time, the galaxy exploded into coordinated chaos. On 47 worlds across hegemony space, coalition strike forces appeared from nowhere and attacked everything at once. Admiral Zix watched from his command bridge as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The massive display showed hundreds of small battles happening simultaneously. Every few seconds, another red dot appeared as a new attack began. "Strike Group Alpha has hit the supply depot at Kepler Station," reported Lieutenant Kim, his eyes glued to the quantum communication device. "Minimal resistance, they are withdrawing as planned." Before Zix could respond, more reports came in. Strike Group Beta had attacked manufacturing facilities in the Rigel system. Strike Group Gamma was hitting communication towers on the border worlds. Everywhere the humans had planned, coalition forces were striking hard and fast. But the real genius of the plan was not in the attacks themselves. It was in what happened next. On Caraxes Prime, the hegemony's capital world, Supreme Commander Vorth received his first battle report at 0803 GST. His massive form tensed as he read the details. Coalition forces had attacked a supply depot in Sector 7. Nothing unusual about that. The coalition had been making desperate raids for months. Then the second report arrived. Another attack in Sector 12. Then a third in Sector 21. By 0810 GST, reports were coming in faster than Vorth could read them. "Sir, we have simultaneous attacks across 17 sectors," his aide reported, confusion clear in his voice. "This makes no sense. The Coalition does not have enough ships for this many operations. Vorth studied the tactical display with growing alarm. Red warning lights flashed across the map of his territory. Coalition forces seemed to be everywhere at once. But how was that possible? Order all regional commanders to assess the threat level in their sectors, Vorth commanded. I want to know which attacks are real and which are diversions. That was exactly what Captain Morrison had been counting on. While hegemony commanders tried to figure out what was happening, the second phase of the human plan began. Captain Martinez and his infiltration team struck at the heart of the hegemony's communication network. Martinez crouched in the maintenance tunnels beneath Communication Central on Caraxes Prime. Around him, 6 of the best infiltrators from 3 different species worked silently to access the main computer core. "We are in," whispered Sergeant Tony Garcia, the team's technical specialist. "Beginning upload of the virus now." The virus was not designed to destroy the communication network. That would have been too obvious, too easy to fix. Instead, it did something much more subtle and devastating. It created delays in communication, small errors in data transmission, and random failures in critical systems. Across hegemony space, military commanders found their orders arriving late or garbled. Status reports contained false information. Communication links failed at crucial moments. The perfect coordination that had made the hegemony so effective began to fall apart. On the hegemony battleship Dominator, Admiral Corks received 3 different sets of orders within 10 minutes. The first told him to defend Sector 9. The second ordered him to attack Coalition forces in Sector 15. The third commanded him to return to base immediately. "Which orders are correct?" demanded his communications officer. Corks had no way to know. The quantum signatures looked authentic, the command codes were valid, but the orders contradicted each other completely. This confusion was happening on hundreds of hegemony ships across the galaxy. Commanders who had always followed clear, precise orders now faced chaos and uncertainty. Some chose to follow the first orders they received. Others tried to contact their superiors for clarification. Many simply waited, paralyzed by indecision. By 0900 GST, 1 hour into Operation Endgame, the hegemony's military response had collapsed into confusion. Regional commanders could not coordinate with each other. Fleet commanders received conflicting orders. Supply ships did not know where to deliver their cargo, but the humans were not finished. Major Dan Cooper began the third phase from his position aboard the Coalition flagship. Cooper was a specialist in psychological warfare, an expert in using information as a weapon. His target was not hegemony ships or bases, but their minds. "Begin broadcasting," Cooper ordered his team. Across hegemony space, every communication channel suddenly carried the same message. It was not a threat or a demand for surrender. It was something much more frightening: detailed intelligence about hegemony military positions, supply routes, and defensive plans. The broadcasts included information that should have been impossible for the Coalition to know: secret base locations, classified weapon specifications, personal details about hegemony commanders. The message was clear. The Coalition knew everything. On the hegemony cruiser Devastator, Captain Geith listened to the broadcast with growing horror. The Coalition voice was calmly reading his ship's exact position, its weapon loadout, even the names of his senior officers. "How do they know this?" whispered his tactical officer. Xith had no answer. The Coalition was broadcasting secrets that had been kept hidden for years. If they knew this much, what else did they know? Were there spies on every ship? Was every communication being monitored? Fear spread through the hegemony fleet faster than any weapon. Commanders began to suspect their own crews. Officers questioned orders from their superiors. The unity that had sustained them through 7 years of war began to crack. By 1000 GST, 2 hours into the operation, the hegemony's response had become completely chaotic. Some commanders had ordered their fleets to defensive positions around their homeworlds. Others had launched attacks against targets that no longer existed. Many had simply stopped moving, afraid that any action might reveal their positions to the all-knowing enemy. Supreme Commander Vorth watched his empire fall apart from his command center on Caraxes Prime. The tactical display showed his forces, scattered and confused, responding to threats that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. "Sir, we are receiving reports that coalition forces have withdrawn from most of their targets," his aide reported. "But we still cannot establish communication with half our fleet commanders." Vorth's mind raced. If the coalition forces were withdrawing, where were they going? What was the real purpose of these attacks? That was when he received the message that changed everything. "Sir, we have detected a small coalition fleet approaching the outer defensive perimeter. Maybe 20 ships. 20 ships. Vorth almost laughed. After the chaos of the past 2 hours, the coalition was sending 20 ships against his capital world? The defensive stations alone could destroy a force that small. "Let them come," Vorth ordered. "We will show them what happens to those who attack Caraxes Prime directly." But as the coalition fleet approached, something strange happened. Vorth's defensive commanders requested permission to engage, but their requests came slowly, with long delays between messages. Some stations reported technical difficulties with their weapon systems. Others claimed their targeting computers were malfunctioning. The virus Captain Martinez had planted was working perfectly. By 1100 GST, 3 hours into Operation Endgame, the small coalition fleet had penetrated the outer defenses of Caraxes Prime. Not through superior firepower, but because the defensive network could not coordinate effectively. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Freedom, watching the hegemony capital world grow larger on his screen. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who knew exactly what they were doing. "All defensive stations are experiencing communication difficulties," reported Lieutenant Patricia Wong. "Their response time is down by 60%. "Excellent," Morrison replied. "Begin the final phase." The final phase was not an attack. It was something the galaxy had never seen before. A complete psychological victory achieved without firing a single shot in anger. Morrison's small fleet had not come to destroy Caraxes Prime. They had come to prove that it could be destroyed, anytime they chose. "Open a communication channel to Supreme Commander Vorth," Morrison ordered. "Channel open, sir." Morrison's voice carried across space to the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. When he spoke, his words would end the longest war in galactic history. "Supreme Commander Vorth, this is Captain Morrison of Earth. We need to talk." Supreme Commander Vorth stared at the communication screen in his command center on Caraxes Prime. The human captain looked calm, almost relaxed, as if he had not just penetrated the most heavily defended system in the galaxy with only 20 ships. "Captain Morrison," Vorth said slowly, "you have made a terrible mistake. You are surrounded by 1,000 defensive platforms and the largest fleet in hegemony space. Surrender now and I might let your crews live." Morrison smiled, and that smile made Vorth's blood run cold. "Supreme Commander, look at your tactical display. Really look at it." Vorth glanced at the massive screen that showed the space around, his capital world. His defensive stations were there, but many showed red warning lights, communication failures, weapon malfunctions, targeting errors. His fleet was scattered across the system, some ships not responding to orders at all. "This is temporary," Vorth insisted. "Technical difficulties. We will have them repaired soon." "No, you will not," Morrison replied calmly. "Because we control your communication network now. We have been inside your systems for 3 hours. We know the location of every ship, every station, every weapon. We can turn them off anytime we choose." To prove his point, Morrison nodded to someone off-screen. Suddenly, 3 defensive platforms went dark. Their lights went out, their weapons powered down, their communication arrays fell silent. "Repair that," Morrison said quietly. Vorth felt his heart racing. This was impossible. The human fleet was tiny. His defenses should have destroyed them before they got within 1,000,000 kilometers of his world. "What do you want?" Vorth asked. "The same thing you want," Morrison replied. "An end to this war. But not the end you have been planning. Something better." The display in Morrison's transmission changed to show the entire galaxy. Red and blue dots marked the positions of fleets and worlds, but something was wrong. Many of the red dots were blinking or had disappeared entirely. Your empire is in chaos, Supreme Commander, Morrison continued. Your regional commanders cannot communicate with each other. Your fleets are scattered and confused. Half your bases think they are under attack. The other half do not know what to believe. Temporary confusion, Forth repeated, but his voice lacked conviction. Permanent change, Morrison corrected. We have proven that your military can be defeated without destroying a single ship. Your people are scared, your commanders are lost, and your empire is falling apart. But we did not come here to humiliate you. Morrison leaned forward, his expression growing serious. We came here to offer you something your species has never had before. True peace. Vorth laughed bitterly. Peace? You attack my empire and call it peace? We disabled your empire and call it an opportunity, Morrison replied. Supreme Commander, this war has been going on for 7 years. Millions have died on both sides. Entire worlds have been destroyed. And for what? Mining rights in space nobody really wanted? The truth of those words hit Vorth like a physical blow. The war had started over something small and grown into something that consumed everything. Neither side could remember why they were really fighting anymore. What are you proposing? Vorth asked. Morrison's transmission changed again. Now it showed a new kind of map, one Vorth had never seen before. Instead of red and blue territories marked by military control, it showed trade routes, communication networks, and shared resources. Integration, Morrison said simply. Your empire and the coalition have been enemies for 7 years, but you have also been neighbors. You share borders, trade routes, even some of the same star systems. What if instead of fighting over those resources, you shared them? Impossible, Vorth said automatically. The hegemony does not share power. The hegemony does not exist anymore, Morrison replied with devastating calm. Look at your empire, Supreme Commander, really look at it. Half your fleet will not answer your calls. Your communication network is under our control. Your defensive systems obey our commands more than yours. Morrison paused to let that sink in. We destroyed your empire in 3 hours without firing a shot. If we wanted to kill you, you would already be dead. If we wanted to conquer you, you would already be conquered. But we want something different. What? We want you to join us. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Vorth stared at the human captain, trying to understand what he was really saying. Join the coalition? Vorth asked. Join something new, Morrison corrected. The coalition is broken too. 7 years of war has exhausted everyone, but humans have a different idea. Instead of empires fighting each other, what if all the species in this galaxy worked together? Dr. Lisa Chen appeared on the transmission beside Morrison. Supreme Commander, we have studied your species for 3 years. Coraxians are natural leaders, excellent organizers, brilliant strategic thinkers. The galaxy needs those skills. For what purpose? Exploration, Chen replied. There are thousands of star systems in this galaxy that no one has visited. Millions of worlds that could support life. Resources enough for everyone if we work together instead of fighting over scraps. Morrison took over again. The coalition and the hegemony have spent 7 years destroying each other. Humans want to spend the next 70 years building something better. We want your help to do it. Vorth was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Everything these humans said made sense, but it went against thousands of years of Coraxian tradition. His people had always been conquerors, not cooperators. And, if I refuse, he asked. Morrison's expression did not change. Then you refuse. We will not force you. But your empire is already broken, Supreme Commander. Your choice is not between war and peace. Your choice is between cooperation and collapse. To prove his point, Morrison activated another demonstration. Across hegemony space, defensive systems that had been offline suddenly came back to life. Communication networks that had been jammed began working perfectly. Ships that had been lost in the confusion received new orders and began moving in coordination. We can fix everything we broke, Morrison explained. We can restore your empire, repair your fleets, and leave you in peace. But the coalition is broken too. Both sides will go back to licking their wounds, rebuilding their strength, and preparing for the next war. Or, Vorth asked. Or we work together to build something that makes war unnecessary, Morrison replied. Humans have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We think that is backwards. If you want peace, prepare for cooperation. The communication fell silent as Vorth considered his options. Outside his windows, he could see the human fleet hanging in space around his capital world. 20 small ships that had accomplished what 7 years of coalition attacks could not. What exactly are you proposing? Vorth asked finally. Morrison smiled again, but this time it was warm instead of unsettling. A new government for the galaxy. Representatives from every species, including yours. Shared resources, shared knowledge, shared exploration. No more empires, no more territories, no more wars over who controls what. The Galactic Council has tried that before, Vorth pointed out. It failed. Because they tried to maintain the old system with new rules, Chen explained. We are proposing something completely different. Not a council of empires, but a union of species. Every world gets a voice, every species contributes what they do best. And humans would control this union? Morrison shook his head. Humans would participate in it. We are good at seeing problems and finding solutions. But we are not good at everything. Coraxians are better leaders. Vorthons are better engineers. Altarians are better explorers. The galaxy needs all those skills. Vorth looked at his tactical display again. His empire was still in chaos, but he could see the potential in what the humans were describing. Instead of fighting over resources, they could explore for new ones. Instead of building weapons, they could build worlds. You ended our war in 5 hours, Vorth said slowly. How long would it take to build this new galaxy? Generations, Morrison replied honestly. Maybe centuries. But it would be something worth building. Vorth made his decision. I accept your proposal, Captain Morrison. Not surrender, but partnership. Morrison nodded respectfully. Welcome to the future, Supreme Commander. Let us build it together. At exactly 1300 Galactic Standard Time, 5 hours after humanity assumed tactical command, the longest war in galactic history came to an end. Not with surrender or conquest, but with a handshake between former enemies who had chosen to become allies instead. The galaxy would never be the same.